Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Today I wanted to present to you, and thank you for the opportunity to do it, the NCC's basically presence in Ukraine. We've been working there since 2014 and wanted to share with you our experiences. So I guess without further ado, I will start the presentation. Okay, so basically I was going to be talking about a history of Ukraine in about 100 objects. This is not a lesson in the history of Ukraine, but especially not the recent history, because you can read up on that anywhere. This is more of what we were doing in Ukraine. As our flyer here says, from 2016 to 2018, me and a returning student, Tom Hanley, we went to Ukraine to basically help out the FRAC. It's the Foundation or the Fund for Research of Ancient Civilizations, and most of their work is being done in Ukraine. So really, I wanted to share with you what we were doing, and yeah, so sort of partly a travelogue, partly hopefully beautiful pictures, but I wanted you to see Ukraine from a different perspective, not what you're seeing on the news, not the horrors that they're going through, but our experiences there. Yeah, this is basically how I remember Ukraine. And you'll see this is not sort of the only type of scene that you will see there. It's a very, very beautiful place. How did this all start? Well, this is Irina Forostan. I met her at the Arms and Armor Club of New York, which I have a little slide of up here. For those of you who don't know, my PhD was in Central Asian swords, so that's why you'll see a bunch of swords. She kept asking, when I first met her, it was probably about 2010, and she kept saying to me, come to Ukraine, come to Ukraine. I was doing other things, and I must say Ukraine was the sort of the last place on my mind. Didn't really know much about it. Yeah, I knew it was important. I knew some of the archaeology from there, but it wasn't up on my radar at the time. I was doing a number of other projects. I was working in Turkmenistan and doing some work in Turkey at the time. Then an opportunity came up. There was this history of Arms and Armor conference. And since that's my thing, there was a bunch of people who I knew that were going to the conference. So I thought, all right, this is the opportunity. I can tell her finally I'll go to Ukraine. I mean, she must have asked me dozens of times. The meetings are every 3 months. So I'd say for about 4 years, every 3 months, she would hound me to go, are you coming this summer? So finally, I was like, okay, let's go. First time I went was for that conference in 2014. I arrived on, I think it was a Friday, flying from New York to, I think it was Amsterdam, and then to Ukraine. All went well that first weekend. I gave my paper on the Monday. Tuesday, things started to happen. You know, here's the conference, and so they were showing us around museums and things like that. And just up here, the beautiful view of from the where we had the conference. Then things turned. They were having, this is one of the barricades here in the middle of town. This was I forgot what date it was. I think it was the 18th of February when they started to have the revolution. Here, as you could see, the fires burning would be people that we had to get out of town. This was going down one of these railway cars. Then we had to walk and walk and walk. One of the strangest things was walking along and seeing things like Molotov cocktails under trees, getting prepared for the evening, talking to people and having seen them getting basically dressing up in, I guess you'd call it like riot gear, people getting even hammers, putting on their their replicas of medieval body armor and that, getting ready. I luckily got out of the country the next day on Wednesday, so I was at least gone. But the thing is, when we had to leave, so what they do is they cut off basically all public transportation. So we had to walk, and we didn't know what we're going to do after that. We had to regroup. So one of the people from the conference owns a weapon shop, knives and swords and things like that. Oh, I should mention too that the conference was sponsored by the Ministry of Defense. So they knew what was going on. So basically, what do you do while you're waiting for instructions of how to get out of town? You hang out and look at swords. So there's a katana and some of the other things. And yeah, have a party, sort of. When I had returned in 2016, I thought it was quite interesting. This is from the museum. What they had done from the 2014 revolution, they took the bits from like the leftover of weapons and bombs and stuff like that, and they made an art installation. That should have really given me an idea of what these people are like. That was like, well, you take it and then you do something positive with it. And that's really what a lot of the impression that I got with the people. Okay. So when I started this, there was a returning student, Tom Hanley, a little bit about him. Due to life circumstances, when he first started his IT degree at Nassau back in the late 90s, I think he said it was. He said he started his IT degree, but life circumstances, he couldn't finish his degree. So finally, life circumstances changed again, and he was able to return to Nassau, and he wanted to finish his IT degree. But his interest and his passion was medieval swords, especially like Viking swords. So he said that he came to me and he said that he really this time wanted to get out of college all those things that he missed the first time. He wanted to get involved with the club. We started an anthropology club. And he wanted to get involved in research and how could he apply his IT degree for archaeology. So we started to work together, and hear him graduating. Well, one of the things I had done right before was we'd organized in 2017 a one-day conference on religion over at Hofstra. But then over here at Nassau, 2018, we had an event. It was part of a conference and part of I'll show you in a little bit of a demonstration. This is Irina here. She was helping, part of this was a fundraiser, partly funding for Nassau Community College, but also for AMT, Children of Hope Baby Safe Haven, and for FRAC, the Foundation for the Research of Ancient Civilizations. How did that come about? I was a consultant on the Secrets of the Viking Sword show that was on PBS. And it was all about these swords that were called Ulfbert swords. They have, example like here, and here they have inlaid on them the name Ulfbert. One of the big things was when they did research on the swords, some of them are made of crucible steel. Crucible steel, that was what my PhD was in, medieval crucible steel manufacturing from Central Asia. And basically that's where this steel was coming from. It's a really, really superior steel. When you look at microstructures, you can tell that it's crucible steel and not some other type of steel. So it's more like we knew that it was crucible steel, and crucible steel only comes from certain places, basically India and also Central Asia. And so we were going to look into this. So basically, said here, I just thought I'd put this, sort of give you a bit of where we're talking about. Over here is where, actually a bit further over in Samarkand, where they were making lots of crucible steel. And they were basically trading it up the rivers to via Vikings to Scandinavia. And here, this is basically the region of Ukraine. And that's where you'll also find crucible steel, swords, and of course, Vikings. So that's how we got started on this. And Tom really was very interested in this. He knew about my research and he wanted to be a part of it. So we ended up doing we wrote a paper together. What he did was he took the data and put it into there was some data already that people had written about the Uthbert swords, put it into a spreadsheet. We looked at it with distribution. You could read the paper. And we had it published by the conference organizers. We're still doing other versions of this, and we've really made a lot of progress and really moving the whole idea of these swords and the relationships between people in Europe and Central Asia, and particularly those people who are going by the sea. We're really pushing the academia forward, and we've given papers since then at the same conference. Oh, you notice this was volume 1. We're up now to volume 3. It's supposed to be published this year, but let's see with what's happening in Ukraine. I'm not hopeful for this year. Then as part of that, we use that as basically a springboard to do this Secrets of the Shining Sword event. Basically, this is Rick Farah. He was the blacksmith on the PBS show, Secrets of the Viking Sword. This is over here, Jeff Wassen. He was also on a PBS show, which was on, it was Secrets of the Shining Knight, and he's an armorer. And he actually lives not far from here. So we had an event, we had a lecture, we had objects, and one of the big aspects of it was showing how to do forging. No. So that's how it started here at Nassau. Then what we do in the Ukraine. Well, one of the things that they had me do was basically give a lot of lectures, do a lot of talking on things. Because I should give you a bit more of my background. I started out as my training is in archaeological conservation. That's when you help preserve objects, work in museums, things like that. And like I said, my PhD was in swords. So what they wanted me to do was, Irina kept asking me to come to help train the people. Because what happened was, and this is all throughout Central Asia, during the Soviet times, all the art conservators, archaeological conservators were all trained, and archaeological scientists were all trained in Moscow. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, all these the new states that developed afterwards, they don't have the training. They don't have universities that have the background in the training of art and art conservation, heritage studies. So she asked me to come and help them out with that. So that's what we were doing. Some of it was just about, we did questionnaires, Tom helped with that as well. We did just very simple Google forms that we gave people to find out what their problems were, gave them lists of contacts of where to go for professional organizations, just reading lists, things like that. We also were instrumental in getting them a number of microscopes, which we'll go into in a little bit. So what did I do there? Worked on swords, gave talks, and met with scholars. Here too, this is, we gave a class that we were instrumental in getting them the microscopes. Then we were showing them how to use the microscopes for looking at metals, ceramics, and things like that. We also, these are art conservators. We had a class for them as well of also using the microscope. Also, I believe that one of the other things that I believe here, she had ended up, because of our lists of places to contact, she ended up doing I believe a week in Japan doing paper conservation. So we did actually, we're helping people to move forward in their professions. And Tom too, learning how to use the microscope. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about really the history of Ukraine. Now you know what we were doing there. One of the things that Irina wanted to do was, I think, show me every single thing that there is, or show us every single archaeological site in Ukraine, which of course is impossible. But really what I wanted to show you now was just some of the highlights. Because yeah, you get on the news a lot of the new history from there, but the archaeology, really not that many people know about it. And when you look at it, say on our map here, it's the region that was really linking Europe and Asia, and the North and the South. It's with the Black Sea, with the rivers. They had trade going this way. Yeah. They had from here, the steppe region, people from the nomads and the horsemen from like in the Turkic people from like Kazakhstan, Mongolia, trading with them. So we have trade from all the way from objects from China all the way over. I was recently at a conference over here in Uzbekistan. And one of the people that was there was from Ukraine, and they were going to be doing an exhibition on all the objects from Uzbekistan, the archaeological objects that were created in Uzbekistan that ended up in Ukraine due to the amount of trade. Other things that I'm learning from my research, the amount of trade and contacts between Ukraine, then going up the rivers here to Scandinavia and into Britain. It's something that a lot of people don't know about. And the more that we're looking into it, so there's a great deal of evidence. Then particularly even when you're going way back in time, the early cultures that I'll be talking about in a little bit, when they've been doing DNA, the DNA of people from here and people to all the way over here have links because of intermating. And think of it of people going by the sea. These are a lot of the, we hear all about Rome and the people that were here, and they always just say, oh, those barbarians and the culture outside of that Rome, these are those people. A very, very rich culture. But again, they were going mostly by sea, by trade, not by land. Later on, what we get is things really change at the end of the Viking period. When you get people, when the 1066, when the Normans invade, William the Conqueror come into England, you have a mass exodus of people from England, some of them going, like especially the aristocracy, some of them going up, back up to Scandinavia, and other ones going back into Ukraine, and other ones even going into Croatia. Something just sort of jump ahead a little bit, but you might have heard of the Viringians. They were the elite military guard of the army down in Byzantium, down here. The earliest ones were from Ukraine, but then the next largest, say, cultural group were from Britain. And that's because they're all related to each other. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm finding out a lot about now with our research. Okay, so just to sort of show you, here are the Carpathian Mountains. So that was sort of a stopping point. That's why you get people, of course, people trading and going over the mountains, but that's really time consuming. Not when there's all in here, and when I show you the pictures later of all these rivers. These are river people. And you can go, it's really where the river people and the land people meet. That's really what it is. Because here, this is all that steppe region where you had horse people, and they are meeting to trade with the river people. So that's really, again, how a lot of objects got into Europe from Central Asia and further afield. it's where basically, the land is pretty flat until you get to the Carpathian Mountains. So all this area said people would just then go by rivers down and northern. But I want to start by showing you in this region here, start by some of the early archaeological sites. Some of the places we'll go to is, pardon my pronunciations, Chenehiv up here. Then what we did was we went, first we went basically driving down to the area of Lviv here, and later I'll show you some bits from Ivano-Frankivsk, but a lot of these sites that I'm going to show you are over here. Originally, we were going to go down in this region 2014 until well, we said what happened there. So haven't been to this region, and most of our stuff has been from over here that you're going to be seeing. This, I think, is one of the coolest things. I remember it from when I was an undergraduate. They had an exhibition of this in, I think it was the Natural History Museum. The history of Ukraine goes way back to early Paleolithic and even earlier. I think there's remains of Homo erectus there too, but that's a whole another lecture. Here we have remains of, these are houses made out of mammoth tusks. Okay? Is that like the coolest thing? That with the skins on top of it. Yeah, and this is the region where they come from. The museum there, we have one of the tusks that you can see here. I was lucky, I know I was introduced to Professor Videnko. He's the foremost specialist in this early period. If anybody's interested, I've got a copy of the book. He has this huge book, which is from this early culture all the way, it's actually the Triplion culture, which I'll talk about in a minute, up to the Rus. That's his specialty. So I went with him around the museum looking at all the archaeology, and he also was one of the ones who he wanted the microscopes to use in his research, archaeological research. And since we gave them the microscopes, some of the photographs of the ceramics that have been published. So that's really one of our major purposes of going to the Ukraine was not only to teach them, but so they could get their information out and show the world how great, how important their archaeology is. So, but just to show you here, said one of the mammoth tusks, and said some of the objects. I'll show you some more in a second. Things like this. There were numerous ones of these that I saw in a number of the museums. This is, I believe it's supposedly, I'm not sure if it's ivory or but it's mammoth. It's either mammoth bone or mammoth ivory. But check out this carving in it. These holes in it. So it could be worn probably like a bracelet. But really said, this is just one. Lots of carvings. This is not something that we tend to think of when we think of the Paleolithic, because we don't have the remains anywhere else. That's the thing. Ukraine has so many archaeological sites and the stuff is so well preserved. That's the other thing, that, like I said, that this is just one of the bracelets that I saw. Here too, here, just some of the, lots and lots of flint working from this time. They have great geology. So, and I should say, for those who don't know, during the early Paleolithic, this is your high technology of the time. They are using flint. It's very, very sharp. They still use it today, that and obsidian for like surgeries and things like that, because it's very, very sharp. So it's very good for what they were using it for the carving, for cutting meats, for killing your woolly mammoths so you can make a house out of them. I always say in my class that when we get to that point in the class, that the woolly mammoth was sort of like Walmart on hooves. or whatever they have. I don't know what their feet are, because they would use every single part of it, for art, for their clothing, besides the food. You saw the houses for the tools, but you don't see these things usually well, I never saw this stuff until I went to Ukraine. You have lots of things like antlers, carved here too, carving. So you get, besides the Wooly Mammoth carving, you get carving on lots of different, antlers and bones and things like that. So, and said more so than I've ever seen anywhere else. They decided to show us one of the places. This is what I thought was absolutely amazing. We drove to one of the areas, but I wanted to show you here. This is near where we're going to be going in a few seconds here. This sort of site is what you see all over this region. Wonderful expanses of river going into the mountains. And don't forget, these rivers were, and still could be, until, well, Viking times really, they're the major highways. Just think about how, if you're going over land, well, if you're going by foot, it's going to be really slow. If you're going over some places by horse, then, well, yeah, you can go quicker. But really think about the amount of ground you can cover by going by the rivers. That's why they were, and the amount that you can carry with you via the rivers. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people in the past, that's what they were doing. But near here, there's this area. I'll show you some other pictures later on of it. This very flat area. When you're walking along, I'd be looking down and you would see basically bits of pottery still on the surface from, this transition between Paleolithic, Neolithic, so say roughly 10,000 years ago, 10,000 to about 5,000. And also wild strawberries. So you'd be going down, you go, oh, wild strawberry, piece of ceramic, wild strawberry, piece of flint, all over that entire area. And one of the things is here, cave. This area too is filled with caves. So you've got not only the rivers, but you have these cave areas where they were mining for flint. And also you get some really nice, I'm not sure what type of rock it is, it's type of calcite, I think it is. I'll show you a picture of it. But they said that they would have large crystals. So, and they started to use these way back in time, so at least during the Paleolithic. So one of the things we did, we were able to go down into the cave. Tom was happy because he didn't hit his head. One of our things there. But just show, these are the types of things that are still there. So imagine if that's what they left behind, what were they trading with? Where else are these objects? So we're just showing you down into the cave. These are basically grinding stones. People were sometimes living down here. They were mining down there, really early mining for things. So for your flint, later on, the areas for copper working. My background in archaeometallurgy, I never heard about any information about copper working from this area because it hasn't been published, because nobody studied it. Little bits, the people that are there have done it a little bit, but the rest of the world, we don't know about it. And there was so much of it. But just to show you, as we're walking down there, they only start to excavate a really, really small bit. These are your grinding stones for things like, say, wheat, and if you're making it, if you're grinding your corns, and not our corn, iron corn, different type of corn. But basically, yeah, think of it as like your wheat products and stuff like that. You would find bits of pottery, you would find bones, here's some more pottery. They do find some burials down there from all sorts of different time periods. And it is an enormous cave system. A lot of it's closed off, one, because of course, dangerous for people to go down there. Also, they want to protect the archaeology. I should mention now, one of the reasons why they asked me to go out there was we had a conference too on the problems of looting. There's an amazing amount of looting going on. It's horrible. When you loot objects, basically somebody's just going, there's like, they'll see like a burial mound. Somebody will just come with a shovel, take out whatever they can get and sell it on the black market. That's a major problem. There was recently, I think it was last year sometime, maybe 2 years ago. I think it was coming through Turkey. They seized millions of dollars worth of like gold objects, Scythian objects. I'll show you in a little bit, that were coming from the Ukraine to be sold again on the black market, things eBay. There was just now a really gorgeous sword with all gold on it, or dagger, I should say, probably from when was it from? Maybe, well, about almost 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago. That was being sold on from a private collector. Should have never been out of the ground. It's really cultural treasure. So besides the problems that they have in Ukraine now, they've been having problems with a lot of people coming to do the looting and stealing their cultural heritage, because there is so much of it. And as you'll see, just a small sample in the photographs. So that's just something, again, so we had a conference on trying to figure out ways to stop this, whether to start instill treasure trove laws, things like that. But part of the government at the time was still Russian puppets, and they like to have their objects and they like to make their money from the looting. Also, just so you are aware, most people don't really realize how significant and how huge the trade in illicit antiquities is, not just in Ukraine, but other places. It's right up there with, it's when it comes to millions of dollars worth of trade, it's up there with drug smuggling, human trafficking, arms dealing, and and artifacts. So the looting of artifacts is not just about the objects, but where the money goes. Yaroslav's bones, very good point. Yes, that was one of the things too that they wanted us to look at, see if we could get them to do DNA on it. But because we saw they have his coffin there, they have his chair. We saw his throne. I couldn't find my pictures of it. It's driving me nuts. I've got too many pictures. But we were up there being able to get close to these things because, well, we're archaeologists and we know people. But yeah, so there's so much that they've taken. Okay, let's move on from here. Let's get out of the Paleolithic. Come on, it's not letting me move. Come on, there we go. I want to tell you about the Triplion culture. Now, again, you have to realize I've been doing archaeology or been involved with it. My father started me looking at objects. Literally, we were out west in the Americas. When I was 1.5 years old, I was he was introducing me to artifacts and arrowheads and stuff like that. So literally my whole life, I've been reading up on archaeology. I had never heard about this culture. And even doing my degrees, I never heard about it. Granted, this period of time isn't my specialty, but I've always been interested in it. Okay, the Triplion culture, starting from a little bit earlier than 5,000 years ago, 5,000 BCE, so 7,000 years ago. I want to show you some other things. This here, actually, I should show you this picture first, then I'll go back. They have in their graves houses like this, that they look just like they're replicas of their houses. And even this decoration is all on their pottery. So you can imagine that their houses in the past, that's probably at this time what they looked like. With even just probably remnants of that idea. I don't know, of that, so beforehand, it was the Mammoth Tusks. Here you have just the decoration. I don't know if they would have been putting still those like tusks up here or something. I don't know. But back again, come on. Then some of them too, if you break them open, you've got inside, this is even the best example of it. They have all sorts of like the little things, like here's where we had our fire. Here's where we have they're perfect replicas of the houses. So how come I didn't know about that? These are about 8 inches, maybe a foot to about, yeah, about a foot, maybe a little bit bigger than that, about this. So I think I have a picture of it to give you a bit better scale. Some of them too have here, they have little figures or little post holes to put figures like outside the houses. Some of them too on stilts. Remember, some of them are living near the rivers flood. Also, this is not that dissimilar to other houses you get in other parts of Europe, people who are living near the rivers. But we don't have we just have some archaeological remains of the houses, and we don't really know what they look like. Where here, we have these little wonderful replicas. The only other time I've seen things like this is out in China, where they have things like this. So again, they're really very, so it tells us so much about the culture. But the houses, so they would have been probably extended families living in them, and two, with them up on stilts. So said flooding, you don't get problems with like rodents coming in. And if they're high enough too, some animals can hang out under there if there's bad weather, use it for storage and things like that as well. And there's handling some objects. I don't have gloves on, but they're ceramics, so that wasn't a problem. Come on, why isn't it going? So there's the house again. They make some really interesting pottery as well. Oh, before I even get to that, they did DNA on the people that the burials from the Triplion culture. They had some burials of people, and they looked at the DNA of modern Ukrainians, and they found that you could trace the mother's line back 7,000 years. So any argument that they are new to the area is not true. It is not supported by the archaeology. Men's lines are different. What you have is, this is one of the things I'm doing with my research, looking at kinship systems and mating patterns. The women are there. It's the men who come in. They're doing the trading, they're doing the raiding, and you don't want to mate also with people local to you. Then populations are lower now during this time. They're mating with men from outside the culture. That's one of the things. So you get different male lines, but the majority of the female lines go back 7,000 years to this culture. And said, if anybody's interested, I can get you the reference. It was done, the DNA was done in somewhere, I think in the Midwest in America. But even too, you could see they have these designs on their bowls. They have very interesting figurines. If you go down to the art department here in Building G, by where the art department we're making, there's a display. We're having a display of Ukrainian objects. There are some replicas of the statues from there and some little cups and stuff like that from that time. This was one of the big Triplion sites. Yeah, I'm just hanging out there. Just wanted to show me, like, this is where those people lived. I mean, wouldn't you still want to live there? I mean, gorgeous. Again, this is near Kiev. The other site was further away. There's quite a lot of these sites all over. It's absolutely wonderful. That's what I said. I really want you to see the Ukraine that I think about and how I see it. Oh, come on. Why isn't it going? More about these Triplion ceramics. Just another one here. They made these really cool double cups. Never seen them anywhere else. Oh, here too, this is one of the Triplion houses. Here's some more cups. This is a house of it's not really a house. It's a private collector who was basically trying to collect. It's one of those problems. He didn't want things to leave Ukraine because of the black market. So it's one of those problems of, well, it's already been dug up. He wanted them for study and for people to be able to save them. So he was collecting things, but it's, no, that wasn't the Black Sea back there. It was the Dnieper, I think. Because going through Kiev must be. Yeah, I don't know if they're ceremonial cups, wedding cups. You get a lot of them. It's one of the features. Or again, too, it seems that here, this early time, you probably have things like, just from I know from other anthropological stuff, you have sometimes like dual rulers. So, and it's the idea too that you don't, later you have, say, patriarchal societies. Here too, it's not that it's to say matriarchal, but you're tracing your family through both your mom's line and your dad's line. And that's what it seems that's happening. So, and equally. And also that's why here, interesting too, you know, when you think of Christianity now, especially Roman Christianity, it's all male oriented. Early days, it wasn't. It was a lot more about Mary, and there's a lot of like in the eastern parts, like in Lviv, and so a lot of the churches are dedicated to Mary and Christ. They're not about a male God figure. They're all more about mother and son. And I think it has to go back to the earlier religions. So these are the sort of things. Yeah, these are swords here, arrow, a spearhead. There was a lot. You'll see, we'll get back to some of them later on, but you can see how much, I mean, this, yeah, these are what, 7,000-year-old vessels sitting on a more recent sword, because he was just bringing out everything to show me. Yeah, we saw lots of things. I'll get some of the swords in a few minutes, because they have Viking swords, they have Sarmatian swords, they have then later like Iranian swords and Scythian swords, and now people are collecting more like Japanese stuff due to interests. But they have a lot of stuff, things coming up from the Caucasus, things coming down from like Polish swords. I'll show you some of that when we get there. Just so some details of these types of vessels. And again, said really very interesting. I've not seen them anywhere else besides this culture. This is that very close to that region before that I was showing you where we went into the caves here. So again, you can imagine that this river was probably in the past really high. If you think back way, now these places started to really get populated after the Ice Age. So you figure you've got in the northern regions, the melting glaciers and stuff like that. So these were probably very large rivers at the time. But what you get up on the top here, that's here. And this is what they call a dolmen, which is basically, so from the Neolithic period, sometimes you'd have burials under them. And that's the view from where this is. But really what I wanted to show you here as well is you've got this site that people have been coming to since, at least probably since the Paleolithic, but at least since the Neolithic. Today, right under here, you have even a cave that people are still sort of, it's like a makeshift little shrine that they're still worshiping at. Okay? Think about that people have been coming here for thousands of years to worship at these sites. And there too, you just move, this is in that same little complex, they have a modern church. So there you've got, again, you can see that they are having all these religious centers that they have been from thousands of years. This is continuity of tradition. And again, too, amazing artifacts. We're moving slightly from there. This was the same day we were doing all these things that they were showing us. This was too from a excavation. Check these out. These are, so I don't really know, I didn't get a chance to learn as much about them as I would like to, but they're sort of like bull's heads. It's all this, because again, it's this culture, you know, this whole area that of Indo-Europeans, that of this area that went really, the culture went all the way down to northern India, this whole region there, way back with trade and things. So you've got these, so really, really cool little, I don't know what they were, amulets, something to have to do with religion. And we have just all these objects. You've got stone tools here too. This is I'm not quite sure what it is. It's some type of, some type of tool of some sort, made out of bone. Here, carved antlers. They were taking out boxes of carved antlers. These things are like, I don't know, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 years old. You don't get preservation like this in other places. I've never seen things like this in any archaeology books, but lots and lots of them. Oh, I should mention too, you hear, when you hear about stupid things on not good TV programs about archaeology, they often say, how did they carve these things? How did they do without the use of metal? How did they carve these, all these stones? You don't use metal to shape stone because, well, what do you use to shape a sword? To sharpen a sword, not shape, but sharpen a sword. You use a stone. Stones are harder than metal. So you don't use metal even today. If you want to polish a stone, you use another stone. I cut up swords with diamond tip swords, blades. Take your sword, you use a diamond tip blade, and you can take a section out of a steel sword. What you use for, what they used in the past were antlers, antler picks. You use it for hoes, you use it for basically for working stone and for mining. So they were really, good with your antlers and using them. And again, that's what I wanted to show you, this amazing beauty that walk right out of the place, and that's what you have. All over, come on, there we go. More, just amazing beauty. I mean, just, yeah, you see here, and wildlife. This guy was hanging out on that, that Neolithic stone there. And then, what you have said, we're going fast through time since it's some of the major sites. You have this group called the Sumerians. They were making here too, this is a sword from that time, one of the earliest people to use steel, or at least to trade with steel. Not a lot of work's been done in the area. That's one of the things that I want to look into. But one of the things that really that I love is Scythians. One of the things I wanted to originally do before I went into swords found me, I didn't find swords, was I wanted to do Scythian gold, because Scythian gold I heard about, and a lot of people have heard about the Scythians. But what a lot of people don't realize, yeah, I do have some information if anybody's interested on, like I said, the Scythian burials, if I don't have it here, but I can get it for you. But one, Scythians, one of the first major horse riding people. Two, they are the ones who invented pants. Now, where would we be without pants, right? With chafed legs or something like that. But it makes sense when they're riding horseback. They're the earliest evidence of people wearing trousers, pants, and here they are. Yeah. They use cannabis. They were one of the first people that we know that used it, that for ceremonial, they have evidence for that. So all of the stuff that we have today, you can thank them for it. Probably two reasons why too. Remember I said it's sea people and land people? You use the, it's usually used for fodder. That's what it's used for in like even the Central Asia, Eastern Europe today. You use cannabis to feed the animals. But it's also, as you know, hemp is great for ropes because it doesn't lose its strength when wet. So a great thing that you trade it with your sea people. So that too, a very good combination. Also too, still today, they make, in Ukraine, you can get hemp clothing. I've got a pair of hemp socks from there. So too, you can use it for, again, lots of things. I don't have to tell you about that. There's such great goldsmiths that I even put it down here twice. The amount of gold that comes out from Scythian times, of it going into like Greece and it being traded, is absolutely amazing. Too, this is just some of it here. There are these rhytons that are gold, amazing gold work on them. You can see even almost looks like a Greek scene, either here with the cow with the, so I guess they went from woolly mammoths to cows, basically. Here, somebody taking care of one. But yeah, all in gold work. Amazing, amazing gold work. One of the things that we were sort of working on or talking about with people from the Metropolitan Museum. We were talking about of getting an exhibition of Scythian gold over, because they were like, they have so much that they don't mind having some on loan. But now, well, we'll see what happens in the future. Get this. This is something else I had not known about. Dolphin coins. They have huge numbers of dolphin coins. Do you really think about Kiev and Eastern Europe being dolphins? But yeah. It has to do with the trade with, these are Greek coins. And said lots and lots and lots. Ones that you see elsewhere, they're not this good condition, but they're really tiny. They're about 2 inches. I mean, these things, I just thought, it just blew my mind. And again, I never knew about these. How can I not know about these? I mean, it's the type of thing that once you learn about them, you'd think it would stick in your mind, like the Mammoth Tusk houses. If I had heard about them, I would have remembered them. Start moving on. So yeah, trade with ancient Greece here. So one of these huge ceramic vessels, lots of other Greek objects that we're just going through museum, get with Professor Vidanko going over things. So that was really good. Probably trade amphora for olive oil, probably a lot of trade in things like that, maybe wine, don't know. I'm not sure what they were using these for. And I just thought this was pretty cool. So I just had this thing of more go back. More gold objects, and this was a little here. This little crown that was there. Let's see. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. One of the big changes that happened was when the Vikings came. We always tend to think of Vikings as being pagan. Yes, they were originally, but they very quickly, at this time period, were converting to Christianity, and they were really the early Vikings were, because Vikings just raider, trader, and early Christianity was spread by the sea. So remember that. And one of the things, my research that I've been doing now is looking at a lot of these early Christianity is not like the Christianity that we think about, very different. And so a lot of remains and stuff in the literature, you have to sort of read into it to start to see some what seems to be early Christian beliefs. Just also, there were so many Christian sects around early on and they were all very, very different. And a lot of them sort of building on past local traditions. That's one of the things I'm looking at. But this is one of these early churches. And what you get there is right in that same region, you have the very early pottery, and then you have your Christianity, and even then later objects, some chainmail and some swords. That was from a museum that was on the same grounds of as the church. We have, even just to show you the landscape, to show you some of the archaeology. Here's a fort, and this is right next to, or right very close to, that same complex where that church was. Then we had more meetings with archaeologists, more meetings with archaeologists, more meetings with archaeologists, and more meetings with archaeologists. This is one of, we were also, I said, in Chernihiv, I can't pronounce it, I'm really sorry. The earliest, it seems that the earliest record of it was from 907. So basically we're talking sort of early Viking times. You have sculptures like this that was found in the grounds of the church. Here, you have really the remnants of the founding of the church from 1033. So again, Christianity going back really far in Ukraine. And it said that's why when in 1066 that William the Conqueror went to Britain, and they changed really over to Roman, more of a Roman Christianity. The people who are practicing more of a Orthodox type and the earlier type of Christianity left the British Isles, and that's why they went to places like Kiev and all that. And just some other views of it. They still have some of the old houses, and just sort of how beautiful. One of the here too, even that's a Viking or pre-Viking, actually really pre-Viking, that's probably Scythian, sorry, a Scythian mound here, right next to the churches. So again, that continuity of cultural tradition. Things too that they're doing today. I'm sure a lot of you have heard things like Renaissance fairs and stuff like that, these medieval festivals. This place is the place that sort of puts it on steroids. One of the oligarchs, the Ukrainian oligarchs who made his money in oil, he wanted to get out of that field and put the money into Ukraine. He has built and is still building on this Kievan Rus archaeological park. All of this was done using traditional materials and traditional, doing the traditional crafts. What he's trying to do is it's like experimental archaeology, it's education, and they have, it is enormous what he's building. This is just gives you a little bit of an idea of it. They have, when they have real fighting, they have real fighting with swords. It's sort of, it is sort of, yeah, they were doing, you know, they don't sort of fool around and just put it on for people. They're trying to do reconstruction, see how well armor works, see how well the swords actually would have worked. They have horses there. You could do spear throwing. They don't have all those health and safety regulations that we have here. One of the things is they're also along the sides over here, they're building rooms so they could hold conferences there. People could go there and they could stay there for, besides conferences, to go there for vacation, sort of hang out, do the experiments. You can ride horses, they have food, they have all sorts of things that going on there. And they're building onto it. One of the things that we wanted to do, we were talking to him about, do I have pictures of it there? No, I thought this was pretty cool. Like I said, here's some of the stuff that they were doing. They were doing some Japanese stuff there because it was a part of a arms and armor conference. We were talking to them about building an archaeological science lab there, because remember I was saying about that they need training, and he has the money for the facilities. So one of the things that we were talking to about was building a purpose-built building for archaeological research and training. Well, we'll see what happens with that in the future. So, and these are the sorts of things. So that we were doing again, I was doing microscopy of swords at the conference. This is part of the, I think, the Golden Gate, which I'll show you in a little bit because we're running out of time. Here, you also saw bringing the church to Ukraine. Here in the back, that's remnants of the original, I'll show you pictures in a minute, of the original gate and city walls. Here we were beginning, this is when they were starting to set up, they were having a huge festival. Part of it was my talks and other people's talks. I was giving a talk here at the Golden Gate. They had people, I couldn't find the picture, but we have people that were doing like crafts and blacksmithing, and they were selling things and stuff like that. Yeah. So Golden Gate here, this is the remains from the 10th century. These are the sorts of little things that they found. Keep an eye on, see the shape of this little horse here. Keep that in mind for another slide I want to show you. But here, what they did is a really neat display case that I want to show you. Here, they put the display case under your feet. So you walk on the archaeological objects to sort of give you that feeling of what they found on the ground. And these are all said the coins that they found, gold objects, things like that. Here, sort of another more Viking gold. It was a very interesting disc here. But this is sort of when you go up in that gate, there's a number of layers of it, because again, it went to the original city walls. So that's where we are here. Okay, some other sort of show you again the continuity. Early Christian churches here. This is sort of the carvings that you find on them, things like that. More, see, that's what I was saying. Remember those little horses? So here too, in the churches, you can get carvings, old inscriptions. things too here that were in it from people who were passing, some that were coming to invade, and it was like we were here, leaving their mark, and others, yeah, that were, well, I don't know, they didn't translate them for us. We didn't have a chance. But again, too, some really early churches. And you can see even just the different writings here, early carving the crosses. More meetings with, he was an archaeologist from where those caves are. And more swords, said again, that was our part of our research, looking at more recent swords. Sophia, the Cathedral of Sophia, a very large complex with the very early cathedral being built there with remnants from, said again, 10th century, very early wall paintings. That's one of the other things that you see. And you can see this is this was all gone, so they replicated it there, but here you get is still the original. So you still have original paint, and all these things can be studied. We just need to be able to get back there. Things like great thing, portable X-ray fluorescence. We could tell what the pigments are and things like that if we could get it and bring it out there to study. Two, just more of how they incorporate the olds, what we have with the new. So you could see what the olds that was there here too. If you want to see inside it, there's a, I can give you a link. There's a link outside that you can walk around it like a virtual reality 3D walking through the cathedral. It's really, really well done. Yeah, and this is Tom, obviously, at the bell tower. Yeah. Just I thought it was a really cool picture of the one of the other churches there. Just to say, it wasn't all just things like the all totally archaeology. Food, lots of food. We went to see, this was an album release of a couple of bands. It was really nice. They have really great music scene there. A lot of original music, really, really great. My husband's a musician, so that's why he joined us on this trip and one of the trips, and that's why they wanted him to show it. Tom liking his food and have the shawarmas and stuff like that. And so that just shows you that they have international foods, local foods, things like that, like your dumplings. And two, I could just go into the foods from there. The tea, they make this drink that is absolutely amazing. It's made out of dried plums. What they do is they dry fruit and smoke it. Then they reconstitute it. So the drink is a very smoky, sweet plum tasting. It's amazing. Again, never had it anywhere. So there's even lots. I could just do a whole talk on the foods. Except that would make us hungry and really making me want to go back for even just things like that. But luckily we live near the city. We could probably get some in the city. I know we can. Yeah. Something too is my husband who went one year when I was doing the, oops, let me go back. When I was talking and doing microscopes and all that, the boys went to one of the shooting ranges. And I thought now how, well, thinking now of what's happening there. This is Dennis. He is the one who arranged the conferences, and this is his son. His son now, I don't know, I haven't heard from Dennis, and I know that he could not leave Kiev. His son is now of course, military age, so I don't know exactly what's happening. But all I know is that many or almost everybody who's in the conference, all the men are still there and fighting. And said now that's why looking back at things like this, that is really sort of, well, yeah. Other things, the city of Lviv, which was absolutely wonderful. It's a most amazing city. I had hoped at the time, they have actually an English school near that right outside of Lviv. And I was hoping that we could do something with them, with NCC. It was conquered first, it's an earliest settlement, 6th century, conquered by Vladimir the Great in 981, then Yaroslav. This is the armory here. This is the modern opera house. I just want to show you some pictures from there because it is an amazing, beautiful city. Just some of the sights of Lviv. Yeah, yeah. Who knew that's where Darth Vader goes? Yeah. But the funniest thing is we're right outside the cathedral. One of the cathedrals is the back of me, and then you have Darth Vader on his cell phone. So which I just thought really, the old and the new. and from statues and all that, just really, really amazing. Then even too, again, brewing beer, some of the oldest breweries, really, really good beer there. Lviv is known for coffee, chocolate, and beer. Now, I mean, did I really have to convince people that we should be going there at some time? I mean, now we can't. Also, it wasn't bombed. It was part more of also Austria-Hungary. So it's got a lot of that sort of culture with the buildings and all. That was part of our tour when we were going around there. Like I said, this is the Opera House. To one of the very old churches. And next to the statue, it's a bronze statue. They have a lot of theme restaurants there and things. Statue of Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. You've heard of sadomasochism? That's where the masochism came from. He didn't like that. That's what people associated with him. Behind it, there's a museum. It's a cafe, a masochistic cafe. Apparently that you can get like chained to the tables and things like that, be hung upside down, all sorts of things. We didn't go in there, but one of the big sort of things is that you're supposed to put of this bronze statue, the pocket is open and you can put your hand in his pocket. And he's not wearing any underwear. So that's one of the sort of things of Lviv as well, said old and new and things. So again, I took so many pictures of Lviv of just things like the doors, the walls, even the ground, and because the way the pavers are, just a beautiful, beautiful city. Then too, so this was from the Opera House and just one of random building and some of the stonework. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. Two, this is the Arsenal Museum. So there you get much more sort of the recent things. You get from like the Hussars from coming down from Poland, things like that. So I thought too, sort of couple of lots and lots and lots. Again, more armor, because that's what we do. Two, do you think I'm the only female who studies swords? This is Mariana. She's from Lviv. She works at that museum. Her PhD is in cannons. Okay? So that's why here she was telling us all about the different types. This is a cannon as well. Yeah. So again, it's not just me. Ukraine is very liberal with all those things. That when it comes to things like women, even and men, very equal. They're in the society. I found that that nobody thought twice about. Said me doing swords, her doing cannons. Not nobody thought about that as it being a problem. Why would women want to do that? Also with LGBT issues, that when we were talking to people out there, we were there during a Pride March. They were like, we don't have a problem with people. It's just like you just do what you want. Just people just live and let live. That's sort of more of their motto. Here too, another one of those. I put this one on here particularly. Another one of those theme museums, and I thought it was a bit sort of poignant because it was the building had been used originally for freedom fighters, and you had to say a password to get in, and now they had you do that as well. You walk in, you have to give a password, and they hand you a shot of vodka right away. By the way, I found Ukrainians don't drink as much as my Russian friends did, but just at least my Russian archaeology friends. And just to sort of the theme restaurant, it was quite fun again, foods and stuff like that. A bit more serious note, one of the places taking us, we're back in Kiev now, the museum for the history of Ukraine in the Second World War. And that's why too, I thought that this was very poignant today. Again, the view from there. This is the eternal flame for the soldiers that died, and one of the statues from there. And I thought from right now, really sort of, sort of very symbolic. Well, meeting politicians. Yes, even the mayor. We had met, you might have seen him recently on the news. So very nice, we met him. I don't know what he was doing there. We were walking along the street and ran into him. So there, we had other politicians at the when we were doing the talk at the Golden Gate. They were using it as a photo opportunity. Yeah. Meeting collectors. I have an incredible respect for Eugenie here. I've been getting pictures on Facebook from him. He is in the special forces now in Ukraine. Like I said, they're all military. He's just opened up a arms and armor museum, and he will be making jokes like, "Oh, look, he'll be picking up shells and having a thing, and tanks behind him saying, 'More for our collection.'" And also pictures of him and other people burying bodies of people who have unfortunately lost their lives and these sorts of things. So we've been trying to send them money, helping them out. Said no people on the ground there. We lost friends even 2014. Some of the people that were at that conference were killed. And I'm afraid to know what's happening now with these. A few people have already been killed, but we're hoping, of course, for the best. He's got 2 young kids, and said wonderful person, very generous, who were there too, taking us to restaurants. Said they, when we were in Ukraine, we didn't have to pay for anything. They were all, because they were so happy with us being there to, study, show that, they gave us free room and board, things like that. We're back to the other side, just to show you some more sort of happier things. The Carpathian Mountains on the other side, it's where Irina's from, because I thought that was a really cool chicken, because I don't see one like that either. The markets there in the mountain towns, so very clean water, clean air. There was some, she wanted originally to bring me to some mining sites that are there. Oop, running out of time. We got a medal. We got from he was the first captain of the Ukrainian Navy. He gave us medals for the contribution for our work there. But even NASA has a closer connection, more recent connection. This is Igor Sikorsky, you might know him from the helicopters. We could walk to where he did he said he had a place in Roosevelt originally, and also did the airfields right near here. So, and then we tried to, said, if you read things, they'll say he's Russian. No, he was Ukrainian. He was born in Kiev. And we also were instrumental in writing letters to save his house in Kiev. This was one of the signs that I'd seen in Kiev at the time that I thought was very poignant. And if I can get it, I want to see, we have some words from Irina. This was from 2 days ago.
People who come from Kiev, from Kharkiv, from Irpin, and today there is not many home these people have, and our people help. Just 10 days ago, this center was a business center. We flourish with business, we will flourish with good things for our country and for all world. I'm the founder of Fund Civilization. This is our history. This land has 1,000 and 1,000 years. In my hands, replicants from Triplion artifact. Here in this land, under this Maidan, we have settlement, Triplion settlement, 7,000 years old. We create this history, we create peace in our land, and we're gonna defend our land. My dear friend, I wanna thank you from bottom of my heart, from my people, Ukrainian people, for your help, for your support. Together, we defend our country, we defend our Europe, we defend our planet. Only together, we defend the light of this planet. Thank you. We from Ukraine, Ukraine forever.
If you want to contribute, I send her money directly to her bank account to FRAC. You see where she is. She's on the ground there now doing humanitarian work, and said that it will go directly to her, literally. Give it to me, I will put the bank account, send it directly to her. She's using every penny there. You've seen how great they've been to us. Now it was my time to try to give back to her. So I want to really thank you for trying to see the Ukraine through how I experienced it, how Tom experienced it, our connection with Nassau Community College, and the Ukraine, as well as our wonderful Ukrainian colleagues here that are Ukrainian. So yeah, so unfortunately, said we've run out of time. Anybody can always email me if anybody wants to get involved. So drop me an email, and we can see how everybody can help.
Can I just interject a little bit?
Yes.
If
Oh,
you
yes.
guys, if you guys in a building G, all right, pass by the first floor, by the art department, right across the art department, there's a display case, where Anna, Vladimir, and me, we put together a little display for you guys. A little bit of, something that Anna talked about. I was gonna do a little write-up in there, but stop in and see it up close and personal. And I will be doing my presentation through my live on April 21st at 1 o'clock. So if you want to join me as well. But thank you, Anna, so much for the presentation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, really.
Thank you.